Dr. Fauci, give us vaccines, help all the people who have been quarantined. We'll wear our masks and we'll have to stay distant. We'll wash our hands and we'll be more resistant. What?
Yes, we will.
Fauci, yes? Promise us, please. We'll have a cure that can fight off this disease. Restrictions will lift with some ease. Dr. Fauci, don't forget me.
Yeah, I want that herd immunity. I'm pulling on the safe, I'm signing up on the side. We'll party as a nation when we get immunization, maybe by the 4th of July. Hugging on my mind, giving you high fives, getting close to normal life. I'm feeling like I need a little antibody boost, inoculate me at the perfect time.
Protesters. I have no political agenda, sir. I really don't.
What about all the
Nobody that I know does either. We're purely objective journalists.
yeah, you are. What about...
Truly, sir, from the bottom of my heart.
Okay, I know.
Have a political dog in any
Okay,
of these...
put your mask on. Watch out, the virus is going to get you. Oh, why do you got to wear... You didn't have your mask on the whole time, and now you're putting your mask on. Here's the guy. He's been standing here the whole time without his mask. Here's his camera dude with no mask on. But here he is. Now he's still trying to scare everyone. Now he's going to put his mask on while he reports. Keep spreading that fear, buddy. Keep spreading that fear. Why didn't you have your mask on before? Now he's not talking to me. Why didn't you have your mask on the last 10 minutes? Huh?
They're asking us to wear it per guidelines for television. To set
so you're told what to do. Exactly. You just told me you weren't told what to do. You just told me you could do whatever you want.
I said I was told not. I wasn't told what to say.
Oh, you're just told what to wear.
We're trying to follow and set a good example.
Oh, okay. Set a good example. Is that what it is?
Okay.
Can I get a shot? 256, hallelujah!
How many of y'all know that it's pronounced pho?
From Dallas, Texas, this is Anarchast.
Greetings. Welcome back to Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. I will be Patrick Smith. Today, we have the Philosopher. She is a liberty propagandist, musician, lover of wisdom, lover of self-knowledge, and pho. You may have seen her in her music videos, ANCAP Grind, Mask Order, and Taxation is Theft. Welcome to the show. It's great to have you.
Thanks for having me, Patrick. I really love the opening, and oh my god, Vitalik with his, Vitalik with his twerking. I saw that whole video. It's so good.
I couldn't not like the Vitalik twerking. I couldn't not do that. Yeah. And I was watching your face during the rest of the opening.
Oh, you can watch it? Oh.
Yeah, and you and your face was just like this. You were like, it was just an amazing face. It was great.
Like really animated his ass there, just.
No. I mean, before that, when it was like the news reporter and it was like the chick singing about
when Biden sniffed that kid, that freaked me out. I'd never seen that clip.
Super gross, right? Super gross.
Most grabby. Ugh.
Well, how you been?
Doing really good. Good so far, and trying to make up for 2020 of all the lockdowns and canceled events. So,
well, you are a returning guest to Anarchast. I have not had the pleasure. Jeff had the pleasure the first time. So, if you don't mind, can we start over?
Yeah, definitely. That was like 4 years ago. So,
okay, cool. Well, a lot's changed since then. Let me begin with the question that I ask everyone traditionally on this channel: how you became an anarchist?
Cool. Well, I like answering that question. So for me, the way I became an anarchist was once I understood and internalized in my own life, like how much I hated my consent being violated and my body and my property. From there, I just became an anarchist. It really just out of a moral desire to be consistent and recognizing that if I want to be treated and have my body and property respected, I can empathize with others when their body or property is violated and how it feels. And I don't want to impose, that on anybody else. And I believe that we can all just trade and be free. We have the ability to use reason and evidence. We have the ability to communicate and persuade. There's really no need for coercion and violence amongst human interactions. And the way I basically figured that out and connected with that idea of self-ownership and consent was I was listening to Stefan Molyneux for quite some time, listening to his call-in shows. And what drew me to Stefan in the beginning and his call-in shows was all the deep, real conversations about people and their relationships. People just calling in and saying, hey, I have a hard time talking to my mom or my dad about what happened to me growing up, and it was nice to just hear people going through really similar struggles that I was in my own home and family life. So that was the start. And that's what started me on the path of self-knowledge and really valuing understanding myself and why I think the way I do, why I feel the way I do, and how I came to be. So yeah, that's how I became an anarchist over time, was just connecting with my childhood and the traumas that I had and realizing that I really didn't like them and they were very detrimental. So. Yeah,
I totally feel you there. Where did your love of philosophy come from? Who or what sort of got you interested in becoming, what does it even mean to be a philosopher? Who got you interested?
Stefan Molyneux. He got me interested in just valuing philosophy, which is valuing truth over falsehood above all else, just as your very first foremost thing. And so yeah, he really just inspired me to adopt how to think critically about the world, but first and foremost about myself, and not getting lost in abstract narratives about what has happened in the past and focusing on the specifics of actual things that happen in reality. So yeah, I would say he really inspired me a lot. And, you can have your opinions about him now. I certainly have mine of how he's changed, but I'll never, forget that he was the one that helped me to become the philosopher and really value self-knowledge and healing. So
credit where credit is due. I mean, people are wrong all the time, and it shouldn't really be terribly surprising that Molyneux was wrong. It's just that he was wrong for a long time in a big way. And it's interesting. You're a software developer, and Molyneux is a software developer. I'm a software developer. And for some reason, maybe it's the same sort of engineering brain or engineering mindset that you try and say, okay, well, there's this domain called moral philosophy. Now, how can we figure out the mechanics of this? How can we apply logic and reason to this thing called moral philosophy and make it function that way? I have to credit Molyneux with at least part of my interest in philosophy as well. So I think we share that background and probably some dismay at where it ended up going as well. But yeah.
Right. The focus on the collectivism all of a sudden was hard, or like supporting of borders, which is violations of property rights. That was hard to see too. But I more so just wanted to like debate him.
Yeah. Have you tried?
No.
Well, I did. I offered, and I guess my show is too small, or was too small at the time. You know, this was before he was banned from YouTube. But yeah. Anyway, so
harder to access him at that time too.
So what? This is something that I struggled with for a while, and there was a time when I remember thinking about it, and I first put in my bio on all of my social media, you know, I'm this, I'm a IT entrepreneur, I'm an activist, you know, all this stuff, and then I added philosopher. And the moment I clicked save on adding philosopher, I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't feel worthy of that title. I'm not. And then I was like, well, what does that even mean? And so then I started doing like this regression through what is a philosopher? What does it mean to say that you're one? What does it take to be one? And I'd love to hear your answers to those questions, because like I didn't like change I didn't adopt a moniker that started calling myself the philosopher, which is a pretty epic thing to do. I'm curious if you had any of the pause that I did, and if not, I'd love to hear your explanations or definitions for what it takes to be a philosopher.
Yeah, you know, as you say that, and it reminds me of the very beginning when I was thinking of what kind of name I wanted. The first one I thought of was the Philosopher's Apprentice.
Yeah.
Because I had this thought of a philosopher as someone who has like everything figured out and, you know, is really good at applying critical thinking and reasoning. But, you know, I realized that this is what I aspire to be. And the way that I describe a philosopher is someone who just values truth over falsehood above all else, and is open-minded, is able to explore any idea logically. Doesn't matter what it is. They're not tied to conclusions. They truly just love wisdom and learning about the world and the reality that we live in, and just trying to discover what kind of rules there are in reality, whether, you know, physically or socially, which is more abstract and interesting. You know, how do like humans interact? You know, how are humans influenced based on emotions and thoughts? Really enjoying, you know, psychology. That's just me. So yeah, I think a philosopher is someone who really values that, and that is like their core mode of being. And they're very focused on understanding themselves as well. And every thought that like comes through their head, they really want to re-examine and understand, and they really care about whether what they're saying is true or not. So that's how I describe a philosopher.
I mean, that's novel to me. I hadn't thought about it like that before. I was always trying to like relate it back to some sort of like profession. Like, you know, you need to do it like as your primary thing all day, every day, you know, or not get paid for it necessarily. But
that's all you do. You just sit.
Yeah,
right.
But no, what you're saying, and I had that same issue. I think even right now, all my socials, my bio says journeyman philosopher, because I don't quite feel like, you know, maybe this is part of my introspection that you're talking about. It's just like I'm constantly checking myself against like hubris and overconfidence and stuff like that, especially in these massively deep waters that, you know, that is philosophy. In your how you became an anarchist, you mentioned that you were seeking consistency. As a philosopher and just in general, why is consistency important?
I think consistency in actions and beliefs is important, because first, it's a fundamental thing about understanding reality. We assume, like that things can't contradict each other. So when you recognize that you have beliefs that conflict with each other, or you state that theft is wrong, but you excuse yourself stealing from somebody, those to me are things that if a human continues to believe contradictions, it will lead them down the path of insanity. If it's, about ethics, then it's moral insanity. And that's what I call the definition of evil. Someone who's just morally insane. They assert that they value certain morals, but their actions are completely contradictory to what they say they believe. And I just think that's important for your mental health. I just value thinking consistently, and I've had a whole childhood of believing things that were contradictory and confusing. And I really like being in the realm of understanding what the first principles are, about whether it's morals or the world. So yeah, I would say the main reason for me is to be as clear-headed as possible about reality, and as in reality as much as possible. And when you notice a contradiction, it's just a sign for you to examine, and go through that process of like, okay, why do I believe this? It also contradicts this. Or why do I believe this, but I act, totally opposite from that? What's going on? It's basically, like, to me, like a red flag that something's wrong. Something's off in your assessment of reality. And I just value not having contradictions because, again, I just think it leads to insanity.
Yeah,
You really understand your reality if you hold two contradictory truths to be true.
I
like
value...
the light is on and off. It's one or the other.
Yeah, Ayn Rand said something along the lines of contradictions don't exist in reality. And so if you encounter one, the problem is not reality. The problem is probably your conception or perception of reality. And I absolutely agree with you there. What is this is kind of a normie question, but I think it might have some cool answers. What is your favorite thing about philosophy? Like, what brings you joy out of it?
The feeling of discovery and internalization of what reality is. I've had many times in my life where, and I think this is normal for humans, especially if you had a traumatic childhood, it's really common for you to just develop habits as a means to just survive and feel happy enough to keep going. And I've had many times in my life where, something will happen in a relationship, or suddenly I feel like, so depressed or something. I have to take like a step back and really examine, like, whoa, what's happening? Like, I need to figure it out. So yeah.
Yeah, you've mentioned you had a rough upbringing several times. Would you like to talk maybe more about why, or what happened, or how that's affected you, and how you overcame it with philosophy? And please feel free to say no if that's not something you want to get into.
Oh no, I like talking about it because, like I said, that's how I became an anarchist. Was I got to experience times where, people didn't respect my property. They just took my things, or they pushed me, like they physically pushed me, or they touched me in ways that I didn't consent to. And then verbally, I experienced so much sophistry, whether it was like being called a label, and just like judgmental labels that say nothing about the reality of your actions or why you do what you do. It's just a label to make you feel shame and to get you to change your way just because you want to avoid shame, versus changing your ways because you truly think it's correct and right and just and moral. So that's why I talk about it a lot. And there, I alluded to some of the things that happened growing up. But those kinds of traumas and violations, whether physically or mentally, really caused me to value philosophy that much more, because that's what got me out of continuing the cycle of dysfunction and violence and shame that I grew up with, that I was passed down, that, my parents, my family, from their own traumas, the cycle just kind of continues on. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to be the one to be like, okay, gosh, how do I figure out how to perceive reality correctly so that I can correct all the ridiculous things that I grew up with, mm-hmm. including going to public school. That was the other major influence on my life, was going through the K through 12 public school system and learning about how we need government because there's snake oil salesmen, or we need government because we can't protect ourselves, and we need police, and police are friendly. They're really nice. And, I learned all that stuff growing up, and, I could have been a cop at some point. I could have decided to join the military because I got filled with those feelings of like, yeah, we're all in this together, and I pay my taxes because it's for the roads, it's for the police. Like, mm-hmm. if they didn't force me to pay taxes, nothing would get done. I had all of those things indoctrinated into me, and that's why I love philosophy, because I've these past I'd say, gosh, like 10 years now that I've been an anarchist. It's so weird that I used to say 5 years, now it's 10. Like, what's going on?
We're getting old. I mean, well, I'm getting. Oh, yeah.
My back hurts.
Yeah, I think who was that comedian that passed away?
George Carlin.
Well, that was the comedian. Right. I agree, but no, the one that played in the Disney movies, he voiced the genie. My brain is going blank right now.
Robin Williams.
Robin Williams. He said that it is a parent's job. Think of it like a football game. A parent's job is to pick up the ball or to hand the ball off from their parents in whatever state of parenting that they were subjected to, and then to run that parenting ball as far down the field as you possibly can while you're a parent, and then hand the ball off to your kids, because it is very much like that damage handed down from generation to generation. And over time, it's each parent's responsibility to sort of make as many improvements as they possibly can for their children's sake and children's sake. Mm-hmm. And so I've really taken that on as a responsibility for my two youngest kids. I started the Peaceful Parenting University. I made a whole series of videos about I call it principled parenting, where we sort of apply non-aggression, self-ownership, and I don't know, just basic property rights and capitalistic norms to my home. Consent, yeah. Right.
And that your child actually should be treated with sovereignty. You take care of them because they're dependent on you. They're weak until they're not, right? But in the first years, like, you're taking care of them, but it doesn't mean that you own them and that they should be submissive to you. And so that's really sweet to focus on that with your kids.
It's more than you can do whatever you want because you have ownership. No. It's way more than that. It's you are obligated to them. You put them in that position, in your care. You created them in that situation in life. You are obligated to do everything you can to give them the best possible life, that you can. And one of the common things, you can let me know what you think of this. One of the common things that people say, they'll say that a communism works at the family level. Communism works at home, but once you get bigger than that, this is things capitalists say all the time, and Caps will say this, to be like, communism only works at home. And I say, are you crazy? Communism doesn't work anywhere, especially at home.
I don't think you share all your stuff all the time. I'm pretty sure that like you can have a means of production and own it exclusively. Like if your parents buy you a computer, they should respect that they bought you that computer, you know?
Right. And we've done that with my kids.
Shouldn't break your stuff either. Like they can't just break your stove. You ultimately should own all the stuff you bought and teach your kid property rights.
Exactly. And if something belongs to them, then it belongs to them, and you can't control them or tell them what to do with it. And
taking it away, that's pretty rough. That's like getting them used to it.
Do what?
Oh, like a really common thing that some parents do is they just like take stuff away as a means of like repercussion, right? For something. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, if you don't do your homework, I'm going to take away, that Xbox that I bought you.
Yep.
And I think that's just the very wrong approach. First of all, if you think they ought to do their homework, you should have a conversation with them about why it's important. And if they don't like it or have hesitations, another reason to have a conversation with your child about why they think the way they do and feel the way they do. Not the sort of coercive, authoritative nanny world where you're like, hey, get up. It's a military drill. Go do your homework. You're not getting dinner until you finish your homework. Like, that's horrible. And that's so punitive. And that's how you get a lot of kids just used to government coercion, just thinking, that's the way it is. Authority. You have to have authority. You'll hear people say this platitude. Oh, without authority, we'd all be like selfish kids.
Yeah.
It's just it's just an excuse for not trying a better way, a more ethical way that actually respects your child and the fact that they're a human being just like you were. And, that's, again, I always bring up empathy when it comes to me being an anarchist, is because, like, again, I have so much experience having my consent violated. I hate it. I hated having my consent violated, and I don't want to impose that on anybody else. So it's a lot of it comes from just empathy.
What are your thoughts about like having children, and how would you, or how are you determining if you're ready for that? If you want to talk about this, you have consent to opt out if you'd like.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Well, I consent. Definitely, I want to have kids. It's definitely a dream of mine to be able to take care of a human and watch them grow and give them a childhood that I never had. So definitely really passionate about that. In terms of when I'm ready, well, there's the mental side, the psychological side. Like, emotionally, am I ready? Do I have years of experience? I'm married. Years of experience with my own spouse, dealing with conflicts in a way that is constructive, even when I feel like super stressed. And there's many times, right? I mean, I work a full-time job, and it can be stressful to be the lead software engineer. You have to handle a lot of things and people and clients and stuff like that. And then when I'm off and trying to like change the world, I'm trying to like, spread liberty and get people inspired to disobey and live free. So for me, like, what I'm trying to do is first improve the relationship with myself and with my husband, in terms of when there is conflict, and especially when I feel extremely stressed. It's so easy, especially from the imprinting I got growing up. It's so easy for me in my head to just feel like I just want to run away. I don't want to, like, my first instinct just from habits is to be like, nope, I feel uncomfortable. I don't want to deal with it. And what I've been trying to for years is to sit with that uncomfortableness, to try to like parent myself internally too. There's a couple books I'm reading to that end. One was like Parenting from the Inside Out. It's a really nice book focused on, first and foremost, empathy for yourself. Like, you're going to treat your kids how you treat yourself internally. You're going to treat your spouse and your friends how you treat yourself internally in times of conflict and stress. And so I first try to like focus on that with myself, like trying to catch when I'm calling myself names in my head, like, oh, you're an idiot. You're so stupid. Like just really hurtful things that are not constructive. They don't tell me anything about why I did what I did. Nothing. All it serves is to make me feel bad. And I'd rather just feel bad because I acknowledge that I actually did something wrong. Like I don't want to feel bad just from an abstract idea that I'm, quote, stupid or dumb or something. I want to feel bad because, I said something to someone out of a reaction of stress or a reaction of fear. And I feel ashamed that I, let myself react like that and hurt someone I really love. So yeah, that's kind of like my focus when it comes to getting myself ready mentally for kids. And then the other part is like money, of course. I want to make sure that I have, that's part of the basic needs for a child is first and foremost, they need to be fed. They need good shelter. You need to be able to protect them. I like to go to the range and shoot guns. But, that I'm working on that. And then the other big piece is emotional relationships with myself and others. So yeah, and in terms of when I'll ever like be really ready, there is a bare minimum I'm striving for of like, okay, I feel good. I feel like if something happened, I have experience pausing, not letting my emotions get out of hand. And actually like being able to calm down and try to think through the situation of what's going on. But yeah, so hopefully in like 2 years, hopefully all those, two things will come together, the finances and the emotional psychological stuff.
Somebody said, and I don't remember who said this, but they're like, the people that need to be having babies, that think about the stuff that you're thinking about, that really work hard to make sure it's the right time, are not the one having babies because they're waiting to make sure it's the right time. Whereas the people that don't think about any of this, they just bust out babies all day, every day. It's like,
I know. It's like I sometimes feel envious. They're like 22 and they're like, I got a baby, but they like don't know anything about themselves. It's just like kids raising kids. Yes. You see that a lot, emotional kids raising other children, their own children. I
mean, I was one. My daughter was born, I think several days after I turned 18, my oldest daughter, who's 22. Wow. So I went through that. I know what that's like. And then I really tried to, I made a lot of mistakes. I was not a philosopher or a voluntarist by any means. I parented very traditionally with my first daughter, and I did a lot of stuff wrong. I have a lot of memories and things that I did that I deeply regret, and I had to apologize to her for all of that. And as part of that apology,
that's good stuff. Just to have her hear you, to see her own father like say I'm sorry. That's huge for a child. To just know that.
I hope it doesn't feel like much from the apologizing side, but
yeah,
as part, but part of a real apology is changing behavior, and so I think I've really hopefully like brought truth to that apology to her by showing her that I'm different now in how I parent with my two youngest children. It's just night and day. Like my kids were several years old before they even heard. I say this often, before they had ever heard one adult yell at another adult. Like we have worked really, really hard to parent correctly and by principles now. And all that crap that people say, like, you're going to raise hellions that don't respect anybody if you don't, punish them and control them. I mean, right. I am living the contradiction to that. My kids are amazing. They're better behaved than most kids, and they've never been hit in their life. And, they've never been punished for punishment's sake in their life. It's all lies and indoctrination. And I'm living real-time proof of that now. It's really cool.
Oh, that is cool. Do you think that they're really attached to you, your younger kids?
Oh, man. Like, it is such a... I mean... I have to kind of be careful what I talk about publicly because I don't.
Right.
I don't have my oldest daughter's consent for a lot of this, but I am much more strongly connected to my younger kids. I have a much more active, personal, in touch, real-time relationship with my younger kids, and it's almost so strong that I feel the strength of the connection to my young kids so strongly that it's almost painful because I see now what I don't have with my older daughter. Like, it's like if I'd have never had what I have now, I would not have realized how much I was missing with my older daughter. Mm-hmm. That's really, I can't really, I don't know. It's there's a lot of feels there, but
well, I can definitely relate. It's hard to like come out of a state and realize, wow, that's the kind of person I was, the kind of actions I chose to do regularly. Oh man. And to remember, the pain that you cause people you deeply love. And depending how long it went on, it takes years to fix it. So I can definitely relate. Growing up, I wasn't the best oldest sibling. I'm a middle child, and I was bullied by my older siblings sometimes. And I bullied my younger siblings too. Sometimes I shamed them. I, hurt their feelings, and I, that drove that kind of wedge. They didn't feel comfortable talking to me. Of course they wouldn't, and so in the past few years, I've tried to talk to them, but I always feel that distance, you know what I mean? And it really takes them themselves wanting to like really heal and like talk through the things. But if they themselves didn't learn that, they're going through what I went through too, which is I don't know how to communicate. I don't know how to say I'm sad, or I only know like 3 emotions: sad, happy, angry. You know what I mean? Like I grew up not really knowing how to talk about the depthness of how I feel or what I think. So I see that in them, and I definitely, feel that pain and that loss of just recognizing I can't go back, as I wish, as much as I can to just hit reset and to have that closeness with them. So I can definitely relate with you how it's kind of like a chronic pain. I don't think it's something you can just be like, okay, I feel good about that. I feel good that I'm distant from my siblings. It's kind of an always like thing. Like if you lost someone and they died, it's kind of like you'll always remember that pain. It doesn't really quite ever go away unless it heals and is fixed. So
yeah, it's a childhood is a very difficult thing to heal.
Yes,
from all sides, right?
10 years.
Yeah.
Still a work in progress.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get on a lighter topic for a little while. I kind of 2 related questions because you're a professional in IT as well, right? The question is, how do you separate your sort of activism and your public persona as an anarchist from your professional life? Or do you have to? Are you in a position where they don't care and you don't really have to worry about it? Or, how do you do that?
Yeah. I wish it was the latter. That'd be cool, to have support from my employment. But the truth is I do choose to keep it on the down low and keep it separated. Like my LinkedIn there's nothing about the philosopher there. Although it has stuff about freedom, like I'm an engineer for liberty. So there's some seeds, I like to drop seeds at work, but I don't ever say like I'm the philosopher. Although I have had like literally like 3 colleagues reach out and be like, yo, are you the philosopher? I'm like, oh, yeah. You have to like be all professional, but it's like a nice secret thing. It's like, hey, fellow libertarian, and we're like extra, like more happy on the call, with anyone else. It's kind of cool. But awesome. I do keep it a secret, just because just in case there's some Karen. I just so many stories of people who are just like, they just invent a reason. Oh, you're a libertarian. Oh, that must mean this. You're a horrible human being for whatever reason, or you like guns. Oh my God. you should leave, So that's the main thing. I just want to keep it professional at work. But I definitely do drop, seeds of liberty, like, oh, I love that Florida is not locked down. It's really nice to just be able to choose where to go because I'm healthy. Like I like to drop seeds and have conversations with coworkers.
I guess I've already messed up then. I've already put my real name out there. So there's no going back for me. I didn't come up with a cool handle before I started doing public stuff. So you have any advice for me?
You're an entrepreneur. Maybe you're not looking to go into like, corporate world or work for somebody else right now. You work for your customers. That's who you work for.
Yeah, I hope. We'll see how that goes.
Okay. I like the intro. I mean, I'm your customer of this Anarchast podcast.
Yeah. Our supporters are both of our customers, right? So if you want to be a supporter, shout out disenthrall.me/support. We have supporters. You saw in the opening, I think in this. Well, you didn't see it in this opening because
the names that come up.
Yeah. Yeah. We put our supporter names in the backgrounds. Yep, for sure.
I like.
And we have monthly supporter hangouts now over on our Discord server. So if you want to, I think we have one coming up on Saturday. So if you guys want to be on a live stream over on Disenthrall and hang out and talk about whatever you want, go become a supporter. Okay. So why is the initiation of force immoral?
Oh, so, okay, well, morality, you can get into this conversation about, is morality objective or subjective?
You know where I'm going.
I didn't know. That's usually where it tends to go. I'm used to that. So I think that everyone prefers their consent to be respected. I mean, otherwise you wouldn't consent. I mean, I guess just like definitionally, you want to do things because you consent to it, Yeah. So that's the first part, is just recognizing that every human being desires to have their consent respected. So that's first and foremost. And I don't think you can find anyone who's like, yeah, I want my consent violated. It's a performative contradiction. You can't want to not want something like that. That's not possible. there you go, the contradictions, right? Yep. So that's the first thing. You if you're talking to somebody, right, and they're like, you're having this conversation with them and they're like, taxation is not theft, and you start from first principles, right? And you're like, okay, well, do you like having your consent respected? And of course they should say yes, and if they don't, then you can have that philosophical conversation otherwise. But they will say yes. Now they have that principle of they want to be respected in themselves. And pretty much every statist has that. I mean, every person wants to be respected, but every statist tends to have like at least one thing that they're willing to violate other people's consent for. Because they, have some subjective ideal about how the world should be, and they think coercion's the only way to get there. So that's why I would argue that the initiation of violence, the violation of someone's consent, their consent over their body and their property, is immoral by that individual person's own standards. By each individual human's own standards, it's immoral. If someone like punched you in the face, you wouldn't hesitate to like defend yourself or yell at them back or whatever. You would feel like just and morally right to say, hey, don't ever smack me in the head again. And why I brought up moral insanity earlier is, imagine that same person who was like so mad at you for hitting them, but they see that, I don't know, you're outside walking in a public space and you don't have a mask, and they run up to you and they like, you slap them in the face. Like, that person's morally insane because just earlier they were so angry and indignant at somebody hitting them. Yeah. And yet they excuse themselves just easily. Like, no, it's fine that I hit you. You didn't have a mask. And then they could be like, well, this is public space. This is open space, And then you're like, no, it's still wrong. You're spreading it out. So that's why I would say that it's immoral. It's to me, it's based on the fact that humans value having their consent respected. And so it's immoral to not apply that same principle you expect others to treat you with to all other humans. So yeah,
these are not questions to ask with only 15 minutes left of your time. So I recognize that. But what moral philosophy do you align with the most?
Well, when it comes to like ethical philosophy, I label myself like the three different labels, because I kind of see them as interchangeable, but with, specific nuances for each in terms of how they're defined, but ultimately founded on the same principles of self-ownership.
Which labels?
Oh, I didn't say it yet, but calling oh no, it's okay. Calling myself like libertarian, ANCAP, and voluntarist. Anarcho-capitalist.
I meant in terms of like natural law, moral philosophy, contractarianism, moral philosophy. Like, what would you say you're most closely aligned with?
Oh, interesting. I don't know. I mean, I haven't really thought in those terms. Like, I've learned, like, heard natural law presentations by like Mark Passio. But I guess I didn't see it as necessarily more compelling than the philosophies of libertarianism, voluntarism. It's probably my favorite in terms of like talking to normies, bringing up voluntarism, because it's like the least triggering to them. Libertarian or anarcho-capitalist has some, because of stupid status indoctrination, triggers some status in normies. But in any case, I like all three labels because I think they're all founded on individual sovereignty, first and foremost, over your body, your mind, and then your justly acquired property. And I like capitalism, for example, because it's simply basically stating it's a system where there's no limits on the amount of capital you can acquire. We're not commies and say, oh, you got too big, or oh, you hired somebody through a voluntary exchange to work at your factory or on your farm. Suddenly you're immoral. Like, we don't think that. We think, so long as you're not violating anyone else's body and property, no one should have a say. Nobody should have a say over how much capital you can accumulate, how big your house can get, how much gold or silver you can rack up, or guns. So that's why I love capitalism. And also I think it leads to the best outcomes economically. I think it leads to the most prosperity for people.
Yes.
And choices in the market.
What problems or holes do you see in those philosophies that you hold that you think might still need some work?
I don't know if I see holes in them. I think they're pretty sound. More so, I don't like. I recognize that just being a libertarian doesn't necessarily make you like a moral person. I mean, or like you can be a libertarian, but you're very shaming. Like you call people names and stuff. That's not you're not violating someone's rights by calling them a horrible name, same thing with your kids. Like, I'm not talking spanking, I'm talking, or hitting, physical violence, but technically, psychological shame or whatever is not necessarily a violation of their actual body or property. So that's the thing where I recognize it's about actions, libertarianism, anarcho-capitalism, voluntarism. It's about human actions specifically. And so that's why I always focus on philosophy and self-knowledge first and foremost, because I think that relationship with yourself and how you perceive reality is so important. And also being libertarian, again, doesn't mean that you think critically either, right? Doesn't mean that...
I know that's right. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure you've met a lot of... You're right. You've met a lot of libertarians who... I don't know, they just believe things without evidence, right? Like, It doesn't necessarily... Libertarianism is not the same as I'm a philosopher and I value reality above all else.
Well said.
It means that, you respect individual sovereignty and body and property rights. So that's it. Doesn't mean, that you are pro-choice or something per se. It's, whatever.
Yeah.
Or that you believe in nonviolent communication or peaceful parenting in terms of communication. So yeah. So I don't think it's like holes with the philosophy, because I think they're like specifically talking about human action. And I think when it comes to discussing human action, I think they're pretty sounded in the principles. But when it comes to like, humans being happy together, trying to be happy, trying to improve medicine and, live fuller lives or improve programming and software engineering, libertarianism has nothing to do with that. And philosophy does, though. In all areas, philosophy is the foundation. If you cannot discern truth from falsehood, it doesn't matter what discipline you're in, libertarianism or what, you're going to be pretty prone to error, more than normal. Like, human mind is prone to error, but you're going to be even more prone to like erring in your thinking. And, worst case, holding on to errors for like decades and taking action based on false interpretations of reality. So yeah.
Okay, so if last call for questions, I'm watching questions on all of our live streaming platforms. I'm watching on Odysee, Float, as well as YouTube, and even Twitter right now, actually. So if you guys have any questions for the Philosopher, now is your chance. Get them in. I'm watching on DLive too. Blue Well, I see you. All right, so I guess
you have a lot of auditors. That's a very like tech geeky thing. You have a lot of auditors, don't you? Okay,
5. I have 5, and one of them is a teleprompter. So I have my main one where I do the switching. I have the one over here that has the anarchist, the anarchast symbol rotating that I can like show windows. Like here, I'll show you guys chat. Here's chat. Woo! There you go.
Technology over here.
I have my notes over here. I have my chat up here, and I have my teleprompter right here when I need it. And I also have you on my teleprompter, which is like really useful because I can like look at you while you're talking, and it doesn't look like I'm like staring at a monitor when you're talking. Anyway, I'm a nerd. I'm a nerd.
I love it. I mean that in like the highest compliment way. Like, I'm a nerd too.
Yeah. Get it.
You can define nerd if you want to get philosophical.
Well, man, if we had more than 7 minutes, I would. I literally got through half of my questions of things I wanted to talk to you about. So I hope you'll come back on another time. But
it's been so fun. I really enjoyed it.
Kick ass. I want to know, because you're very involved with a different section of sort of libertarian voluntarism than I am typically. And I'm curious what you want to see more from anarchists. What do you want to see more of? What do you want to see more people doing? What types of things do you think we need to be, the collective we, need to be doing?
Well, I mean, I think the collective, everybody, like all humans, need to like focus on philosophy and self-knowledge. I guess that's my focus, is like, look, do you know yourself? Do you have a good relationship with yourself? Do you understand habits that you have, maybe dysfunctional habits that you've acquired or addictions? And are you working through that? And in addition to self-knowledge, self-care, taking care of yourself, like, work on your body, work out, research how to eat healthier foods. What are the different foods? What kind of drugs to avoid? Things like that. I think that's just so important. I would love to see more and more, not just libertarians and ANCAPs, but of course, because, we're all trying to change the world. But I think the whole world would be a better place if first and foremost, everyone focused on knowing themselves and taking care of themselves, and loving who they are, loving their lives, building their happiness, making friends. I think that that's what I would love to see. Is I want to, go to an event and meet a bunch of voluntarist friends, and they have families that they love and that they've, been there with their spouse for 10 plus years. They have kids that are peacefully, they're securely attached to them. They're kids that look up to them, but also feel free and strong enough to go and explore the world, but know that they have a safe base to return to. That's the kind of world that I want to see, is our fellow libertarians building their families, loving themselves, becoming really good paragons of virtue and health as much as they can, to the extent that's possible, considering like chronic issues and stuff, but also like building their networks, whether it's your own family at home, your spouse that you love, your children, but at work, being out in the market, providing value, even if it is a status or a thin blue line person. You can be friends with them, you can trade, and you can respect each other in that way, and also drop liberty seeds over time because you've now built rapport with them and they like you and they respect you independently, and they're now more open to hearing your ideas of liberty. So I think that's what I would like to see, is just more and more people being just self-sufficient, and strong and proud, and to really show what it means to embody a voluntarist mindset of a peaceful, compassionate relationship with yourself and others, and to show that we don't need to violate each other to survive, and that in fact by persuading each other, sharing knowledge, we can actually build the most beautiful world that any of us has never experienced, and so yeah, I think that's what I would like to see.
Awesome. All right, let's do a speed round to get through these questions, so that we can be respectful of your time. What asql injections over on Odysee asks, what are good ways to spread the libertarian philosophy? In 20 seconds or less.
Oh, okay. So SQL injections. So that's one. No, I'm just kidding. That's funny. Okay, doing something.
Nerd joke. We got it. Sorry.
Thank you. Okay, but doing what you love, being a good person, being a friend that you would want to be friends with, being someone that you would want to talk to if things were hard. First and foremost, I think that's how you can spread it. I think most effectively through your existing relationships and network, whether it's friends, acquaintances, works, customers, or your own like really close family. So.
Awesome. With the product the schools are pumping out, do you think spreading voluntary values will be harder?
I mean, it's been hard. I mean, the Marxists and communists took over the public school system like 20, 30 years ago, probably further, if you're going about when like the whole compulsory education system was founded and funded by like big corporations like the Rockefellers, for example. It just over time got more and more focused on communism, probably because like the Marxist professors and people who got their degrees, like, and studied all that, went to the schools. So it's still hard. And yeah, definitely. I think that that's one of the biggest challenges, is the fact that so many people send their children to be indoctrinated by the state. I mean, once like you said, childhood trauma is really hard to heal from. It takes a lot of time. So does childhood indoctrination. It takes a long time to break out of it. Yes. And it can be hard because the whole point of indoctrination is not to believe something out of true reason evidence because you really love it. It's usually out of fear, uncertainty, or doubt.
Well said.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, last question. What do you want to see less of from anarchists and voluntarists?
Ooh, probably less like shaming and arguing and with some people, not everyone, of course. Not everyone's like that, but it's just petty. Like we're trying to build a freer world, and there's just no need to be focused on tearing people down. And if you are someone like that, again, you should just ask yourself, why do you feel compelled to do that? Like, what compelled you to feel like calling this person ugly or fat or stupid or dumb? Why? So that's what I would say. Less of. dysfunction.
Okay, so I guess I will give you the last word. If you'd like to talk to us about what you have going on now, any projects you have going, or anything you'd like to send people to go check out.
Ooh, okay. So what I'm really excited about this year was we started Jack and I Pho events. So if you go to phoevents.com, you'll always see like the next event that we're hosting and doing. The one that's coming up is with Tasha Cohen and her spouse, Spike Cohen. So there's gonna be a session for a talk and a photo op with Spike, and we're gonna have another session for range time, and then the third session will be a VIP hangout. You just hang out and you talk for an hour, and have some food. So yeah, that's really fun. And so if you want to check it out and get tickets, just go to phoevents.com. Other than that, I'm also going to the Tom Woods 2000th podcast. I don't know if anyone else is, but just go to tomwoods2000.com. I'll also be there in October. And this year, be on the lookout for some music videos. So follow me on YouTube or Odysee. And you'll see my latest music video there. This year, one of my favorite ones I'm excited about is I made a song called Tom Woods House. And we're going to shoot some of the music video at the 2000s podcast, but we're also going next weekend, in fact, to his supporting listeners' house party. So we'll be shooting the bulk of the music video there, and in true Tom Woods House name fashion. So I'm really excited for that. So
nice. Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. And it's also thephilosopher.com, right? Philosopher. See, I say philosopher and I talk like a Texan, so people think that's spelled normally. No, it's PHO, but you guys know that. It's in the name, and I'll put it in the description after the show's over. I've really enjoyed hanging out with you.
Oh, me too. It's been really fun. I felt the feels here and there. I got really philosophical. Damn.
Yeah. Oh. All right. All right. Well, I'm definitely going to invite you back on because I have a lot of other cool stuff that I'd like to talk to you about in the future. Thanks for hanging out, and
That's great.
Awesome. We will see you next time, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for participating in the comments. Peace, love, and anarchy.
Oh, cheers.